like you, but you're crazy. I torch pavement, so I use that note to annoy ladies, to annoy babies. Never that my mind's for sure shady, pure Hades. Rev Xfinity couldn't endure to save me. Why do I let the stripper burn me? I'm not armed with a cigarette in the same spot 10 times on a road, and I feel that burn upon the clear. I'ma get away. Already get given away. I feel stupid cause I ain't gonna get you. Maybe she never looking fine. Niggas spit on her breast, I get vexed, so I ain't better. Open, I try to contain it, but that bang thing soaking. Alter ego say why you let them gang bang focus. Strange lane, hoping I can maintain coping, but ain't nobody talking when the insane main spoken. I like fire on my skin, blood on my drawers, from up on the walls. I'm suffering, I'm stuck in the car, stuffed in her jaws, huffing and puffing, huddling on my dog. Afterwards I like really hot, scalding water on my balls. Am I a psycho? Am I a psycho? Yeah, I'm a psycho. I guess I'm a psycho. Mom, Dad, I'm no longer. Am I a psycho? Am I a psycho? Yeah, I'm a psycho. I guess I'm a psycho. Am I a psycho? Am I a psycho? Yeah, I'm a psycho. I guess I'm a psycho.
What's going on, guys? Bart here with Tully Television, and I want to thank all of you for joining me today as we begin our Spooktacular season this year and get into a horror classic. This isn't a slasher though, or anything like that, or gore. It's more of like a psychological thriller, and it's put out by one of the greatest horror creators of all time. This movie was originally a novel, but Alfred Hitchcock helped create this movie and put it together, and this movie is called Pyscho. Coming out in June 1960, it stars Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, John Gavin as Sam Loomis. There's an interesting little movie theory about his character. We have Janet Leigh, aka Marion Crane. That's also Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, if you were unaware of that. Vera Miles as Lila Crane, Marion's sister. Martin Balsam as Detective Milton Arbogast. John McIntyre as Sheriff Chambers. And Simon Oakland as Dr. Freed Richmond. Now, let's get into the movie about the ultimate mommy's boy, Norman Bates. This movie, though, starts off with our one of our lead characters, Marion, who happens to work in like a realty type of business. She's a secretary there, and it winds up being a Friday night, and one of the biggest deals that this company made was through some rich man buying a property for 40 grand. But all he had was cash. The boss was uncomfortable with the cash, but he told Marion, go deposit it, and then we'll try to see if we can get a check Monday. Now, we did pick up on Marion and her interaction with Sam Loomis. They seem to be item. Sam is recently divorced and trying to make his way into the world, getting his feet, try to set a new path for himself, if you will. And he wants to bring Marion along. Yes, this is a time where just a physical affair would be looked down upon. But for Sam, and even for Marion herself, they want something a little bit more substantial in life. But what's holding back her and him, like most Americans, even in today's world, nearly 60, 70 years later, is money. That's right, the lack of money to pursue the dreams that they feel will fulfill them, right? And that's where they leave their last interaction, so to speak. And then it was Marion going back to work and coming across this money that was left in the office. And she was asked by her boss to bring it to the bank. She did ask the boss, though, before she left, if she can go home early after depositing the money into the bank. Being he seemed to be like a nice boss, he allowed that, and off she went. But what she decided to do instead was make a mistake that cost her more than she could ever realize. She ended up taking the money and taking off. As she was going, though, leaving the city, her boss seemed to notice that she was driving, even though she was severely not feeling well with a headache and such. But he paid it no mind. I myself would have even been like, oh, maybe she's going to get medicine. Maybe she has to go get something on the way home or something. I wouldn't have really... It would have been curious. It would have been noticeable. But I don't know if I would have initially thought anything wrong offhand. Especially that they made it clear in the movie that she doesn't have a background of mischief of any sorts. But on this particular day, the temptation was too great. And so she starts on her trek. She gets stopped by a police officer on the way on her journey, which prompts her to stop at a car dealership and change cars and be on her way. Now, but the cop was still following her. But that's where we last see the cop. I think this was just to set up interactions on the way that when she eventually was started to be looked for, people can step up and be like, I seen her here, I seen her there. So finally, she's able to shake the cop in her new car, and as she's driving yet again, she's forced to stop at this hotel during a rainstorm that seems to be pretty severe, which led her on a road off of the main road to this hotel, actually to the Bates Motel. And when she gets out, she notices that there's a woman sitting in the window up in the main house, because it's kind of like a big Victorian style house. It's nighttime. She's all discombobulated, adrenaline's going, and she just wants to get a room right now and call it a night. She winds up beeping the horn, and here comes our Mr. Bates himself, Norman. He comes down and checks her in. She obviously puts in a fake name, and they talk, and he happens to mention that he'll make her some food as she's settling in and bring it down. When he goes back up the house, we kind of hear the first interaction of Norman and Mother, and she's kind of calling the girl down. She's kind of calling her words that would make you believe that she's a runaround girl and she's only using Norman for food, and that's how girls like this are. And he kind of yells at her to stop being so mean to people, and he winds up bringing the food down to her, and she winds up bringing it up, and he explains to her that Mother is very sick sometimes. Normally she don't mean it, but she gets into her moods, so to speak. And they talk about running away, you know, things like that, to where you want to shed the life you're in for hopes of a new life that you've dreamt about, that you think will bring you satisfaction and joy in life. But it seems like Norman realizes that he's stuck in his lot, because he feels like that even though he knows his mother's sick in certain ways, he can't abandon her. and he gets really defensive when Marion brings up about putting her somewhere. And he gets upset but has acknowledged that he too had thought about that, but can't seem to put he can't seem to put mother in that position. She finishes eating, she thanks him for the evening, but with the conversation getting so tense, and then the constant reminder of his taxidermy hobby around her, you can kind of tell she's looking to kind of just isolate herself away from Norman, which is fine. So she goes and gets into her room. She decides to write a letter admitting what she'd done because she did get a change of heart. She realized that this wasn't the thing she wanted to do. So she was going to go back the next day and bring the money back, minus the $700 that she bought used to buy the new car, which obviously she would just probably hand over anyway, and accept her fate, so to speak, hoping that she can throw herself at the mercy of the boss and the person who left the money for the purchase of the property. She realized that this life on the run isn't going to be for her. And she decides to rip the note up a little bit and flush it down the toilet, and kind of decides to maybe do it another way, and then decides to take a shower. Now, this next scene is one of the more iconic scenes of the movie and of horror movies in general. And this is the first time we see Mother, so to speak, but only in the shadows, as she winds up killing Marion in the shower. You see Mother take off. A few moments later, you hear Norman calling, yelling about all the blood on his mother that he sees. Goes and sees that Marion is dead. He collects her things and puts her in her car, not even realizing that in the newspaper that she had was the $40,000 or the $39,300 left over, and he puts it in the back of the trunk too. He didn't even realize he was sitting on a little gold mine right there. Especially, I can only imagine what the conversion rate of $39,000 is in 1960 to what it's equivalent to today. I bet you he was kicking himself in the butt. But this obviously shows that this was a crime of panic and not of it's not a robbery. It's not because they're trying to settle a street beef. This was Mother eliminating any female influences from Norman's life, obviously. She must have a thing with Norman and being intimate with women. So what winds up happening in the meantime is that there is a private investigator hired, and he winds up tracking down Sam, and Lila winds up coming to town because she also is looking for Sam to see where Marion is at. Now, at this point, it's known that she took the money. They think that Sam's involved because they're a couple. But it's kind of proven through his actions and words that he wasn't involved with the robbery and had no idea that this was even going to be a thing that was happening. So what the detective winds up doing is he tells him to stay there because he lives at his job, kind of. He lives in like a storage room where he works. You gotta do what you gotta do. I guess things were a little bit differently back then, right? On where you can stay and live and stuff like that. But he tries to track Marion down at like room and board places, hotels, motels, until finally he comes across the Bates Motel. And he also sees the shadow of the mother sitting near the window, and Norman comes by thinking that he needs a room, but he starts discussing about the case with Marion, and he can tell that Norman's being very dodgy and froggy when it comes to this, and was caught lying immediately. He mentioned about a couple being there, but he questioned that because he was like, well, I thought you said you didn't have any customers the last few weeks, and now you're saying you have this old couple. And finally, he pretends he remembers her out of the blue and said, oh yeah, she left or whatever the next day. And this private investigator goes and calls Lila to let her know that he's starting to believe that Sam and her have no idea where Marion is at because of her actions interacting with Norman. And he thinks that she took off somewhere, but they're going to make sure they find out where she is. But what the private detective wanted to do after he told her that he believes that Sam wasn't involved and stuff, and that he's just as concerned as everyone else, he decides to go and question Mama Bates. And he sneaks into the house, and Mama Bates winds up attacking him and killing him too. Now you're gonna ask, Bart, why would Norman take such a chance where, like, the cars are gonna be there, right? Well, what he's doing is it's this patch of land that's like a swamp near his property, and he's going and dumping the cars, and they're sinking to the bottom of this swamp type of area to where everything is gone. And then finally, as we're approaching the third act, Sam and Lila decide to go to the Bates Motel under the guise of being a couple and investigate what's going on there. And the little theory I wanted to share with you, the movie theory, is that some people think that Sam Loomis here, the character, is related to Dr. Loomis from the Halloween movies. I thought that was a pretty interesting theory. If you guys have never heard that, go look it up. Finally, as Sam is keeping Norman busy, Lila finally comes across Mama Bates in the house, in the basement, where Norman was hiding her. And we hear a yell, we hear a scream. She hits back and hits the light, it's going back and forth, and we see Mama Bates, and then Norman hears a scream, and him and Sam run to the house, and we find out that, Sam was knocked out. Norman runs to the house, he comes across Lila, and the reveal is revealed. Mama Bates is only but a corpse. It looks like she's been dead for years. Norman is standing there in his mother's clothes, and Sam grabs him, wrestles him for the knife, the wig comes off, the dress comes off, and there's Norman in his regular clothes, and Lila's just screaming, getting traumatized. Norman has been his mother this whole time. Norman Bates has become his mother. And when finally the police come, and at the precinct, there's a psychologist that talked to him, and the sheriff kind of helped Lila and Sam come to the conclusion that something's wrong, because you said that the mother was dead for 10 years. And finally, we get the psychological reason. Norman Bates' mother started dating someone, and he felt rejected because for so many years it was just him and her after his father died. But being she was giving her love to somebody else and knowing what that means, Norman could not take that, and he killed her and the boyfriend. And people thought that they buried the mother, but it was actually a missing girl that had went missing, obviously. Norman replaced his mother's body with her body and proceeded to become his mother basically becoming a split personality, where the mother finally became the dominant personality. And that's where we kind of see the movie end. We see a lingering shot of Norman smiling to himself, narrating his thoughts in his mother's mind, and realizing that Norman is going away for a long time. And that's where we stop this story, where we stop the review about the ultimate mama's boy. I think that this movie is definitely one of the best horror movies to have come out ever. I will give this movie an 8.5 out of 10 for the acting, for the suspense, for the pacing, everything. There's always going to be little nitpicks here and there. However, I definitely would give this an 8.5. That's like an A-, B+ in my opinion. I want you guys to tell me down below what you think of this movie. There have been sequels and a reboot with Vince Vaughn, but that, I believe it was with Vince Vaughn, but I didn't like that movie too much. Anthony Perkins was the perfect actor to portray this person, in my opinion. But again, let me know down below what you think, and until next time, peace, Snookums.